Good morning and welcome to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church. It's good to be together. I'm Diana Kohler, this morning's worship associate, and I wanted to issue a special welcome to anyone who's new here and suggest that if you would like to know more about Northwest or receive our email updates and newsletters, Ben Gable is going to put a link in the chat box where you can enter your email address. Also participating in this morning's service, providing both music and tech support, are our pianist, Alex Myers, and choir director, Ken Hermanot. Northwest is currently in a ministerial transition, and during this time, we have the opportunity to welcome a variety of speakers into our pulpit. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Marty Pelham. Marty is a native of Florida, where their ancestors first settled in the 1600s. They grew up next to their grandfather's strawberry farm near Plant City. After careers in social services and education, they moved to Massachusetts in 2015 to attend seminary, and then to Syracuse in 2018 for their ministerial internship. They currently serve as the minister of All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church of Watertown, New York. Thank you, Alex. And Josh Love is our chalice lighter.
We light this chalice to kindle the fire of commitment to spread our beloved faith, proclaim the good news that all are worthy and all are welcome, that God is love and none shall be left behind. May we carry this flame to all we encounter, letting our lives shine with its glow.
Thank you, Josh. The Reverend Pelham will read our opening words.
Good morning. Thank you for welcoming me to worship with you today. Our opening words are by Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich. Open up the doors. Push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved. Slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside. Open the doors more. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the dust motes something to dance about. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits you best. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of the stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon welcoming the next seeker and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are. Heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster, and pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making. Our first hymn today will be Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn, embracing enemies. Love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and gives new life begin.
This story is based on the book There Might Be Lobsters by Carolyn Crimi and Laurel Mulk. It's about a dog named Suki, and Suki's human named Eleanor, and Suki's buddy named Chunka Munka. Some of us might look at Chunka Munka and think he was a stuffed toy, but I'm not sure that's how Suki saw him. Lots of things at the beach scared Suki, lots. Come on, Suki, you can do it, cried Eleanor as she stood at the bottom of the stairs to the beach and waved to Suki. But Suki was just a small dog, and the stairs were big and sandy, and they hadn't had lunch yet, and their foot hurt a little, and they might get a shell stuck up their nose, and they might tumble down on their head, and then they'd need stitches, and besides, there might be lobsters. So Suki sat at the top of the stairs with Chunka Munka by their side. Oh, all right, said Eleanor. She picked them both up in a huff and carried them down the stairs. Come on, Suki, you can do it, said Eleanor, tossing a beach ball toward Suki. But Suki was just a small dog, And the beach ball was big and beachy, and it might hit their nose, and then it would pop, and it might be too loud, or it might knock them down, and they might never get up again, and they might have to live on the beach forever and eat seaweed to survive. And besides, beach balls attract lobsters. So Suki sat far away from the beach ball with Chunka by their side. Oh, Suki, Eleanor sighed as she swooped Suki up in a huff and cradled them in her arms. Come on, Suki, you can do it. This time, Eleanor stood at the water's edge and splashed a little water at Suki. But Suki was just a small dog, and those waves were big, and they were whooshy, and they were salty, and they were way too wet, and they might toss them out to the middle of the sea, and they might float all the way to Tasmania or even Florida, and they might be swallowed by a whale, and they weren't wearing a bathing suit. And besides, there might be lobsters. So Suki sat on the edge of the water with Chunka by their side. Oh, Suki. Eleanor shook her head and dove into the waves. Suki sat and watched beach balls bouncing and big kids running and umbrellas flapping and lifeguards blowing loud whistles and waves splish splashing with Chunka floating out to sea. Suki barked for Chunka to come back. Chunka started to sink. Suki jumped in and started to paddle. They paddled past a big beachy ball and through a salty wave and right over something that might have even been a lobster until they had Chunka safe. They felt braver than the bravest dog ever, because as scared as they were, they had been able to save their friend. Eleanor had watched it all and picked both of them up with a yay and a hooray and swung them very gently through the air. Suki sat in the sandy sand with the wavy waves and watched for lobsters with Chunka by their side. And they didn't see one all day. We are all scared sometimes. We can be scared and be brave at the same time if we recognize that we have as much love as fear. The end. Our second song today is When I Am Frightened.
Then I may learn to give.
Our reading today is Time for the Work by Reverend Teresa Soto. I'm not prepared to hear you say one thing and watch you do another without even mentioning it. I'm not talking about mistakes. You know we all make those. Sometimes we speak too soon and think too little. We worry more about procedures than promises. We let fear and guilt keep our choices and actions small. Those things, common and human, keep calling us forward to different, better choices. I'm thinking of a different thing in which you know the right thing to do and spend entire notebooks of calculations figuring out how not to do it. Or conversely, you give it no thought at all. It's understandable that to learn, the student must be ready. And if you choose not to be ready while the world cries out for your help, choose to linger in indecision and shrug off the human cost, you are wasting the gentle flexibility of grace. And as Frederick Douglass said, using your liberty for unholy license. You must account for this day. Choose justice. You must account for your gifts. Generate love. Your effort in community is a precious resource. Take courage. Move with urgency toward every possibility. Please hurry. Don't stop. This month, members of many faith communities are marking 1 year of being physically disconnected from others. This day, it is right and good to take time to grieve the damage and death endured around the world during those months. And we have reason to hope that the pandemic tide has turned and that the year ahead will be one of reconnecting and growing beyond the effects of the novel coronavirus. Even as we begin to carefully plan for physical reconnecting, building from the resilience and creativity which have upheld us, there are harmful forces fomenting other forms of disconnection. Nicholas Fuentes, the host of the podcast America First, appearing at an anti-democracy rally on December 12th in Washington, D.C., said, "It is us and our ancestors that created everything good that you see in this country. All these people that have taken over our country, we do not need them." End quote. We do not need them is the rationale for an ideological pandemic we have struggled against from the moment liberal religion first affirmed that how we live with one another matters more than loyalty to any creed. We do not need them. 5 words that attempt to deny the elemental truth of our existence, that all are interdependent. Words that add fuel to a national argument focused on what should we fear and who should we blame, that impede the possibility of belonging, of being somewhere where you want to be and they want you. Mr. Fuentes is a good wordsmith. His handful of words reinforce the myth of scarcity that drives an economic model which reveres ownership as the ultimate good, an idea that regards every element of our universe, including people's bodies, as property. The foundation white supremacy was built on, a driving force for dehumanization. Dehumanization is not new to humanity, and just as physical viruses mutate into novel forms which can be deadlier than their progenitors, zero-sum worldviews keep festering and reinfecting our world. How will we respond? If the virus of dehumanization cannot be eradicated, are there ways to inoculate against it? Can we work to boost immunity, to rehumanize? We can commit to connecting and begin with gritty hospitality. Some of us grew up in a culture where the idea of hospitality often revolved around perfunctory ritual, like saying, yes, ma'am, and no, sir. For those in power, it was comforting. It represented a formula not unlike a creed in which rote compliance offered the salvation of social acceptance. It was a flimsy facade, covering a reality of oppression in a culture built on a rigid hierarchy of human value, based on attributes like race, assigned gender, religion, age, wealth, education, and physical ability. The true complexity of the term hospitality can be found in its origins, the Latin words hostis and hospes, because those words encompass stranger, enemy, visitor, guest, and host. Such diverse roles within the same term portray hospitality not as politeness, but as a process of relationship. Making it gritty infuses it with courageous persistence and tough, uncompromising realism. Gritty hospitality abets rehumanization by giving priority to relationship over comfort. We heard the words, open up the doors, brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved, slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow, knock rust off the hinges if you have to. I don't know what closed the doors the author was thinking of, but I know what it's like to be afraid and to want to protect myself. I know how easily one can become accustomed to abiding in a refuge, maybe even forgetting that a door keeping fear out can also confine our spirit. Opening ourselves to the world requires vulnerability. We sang, "When I am troubled, will you listen to me?" Gritty hospitality means inquiring, what do you need more of? With every person we encounter in our ministry, and attending to their reply, not by hurrying to evaluate what is readily available or to mend another's problem, but by listening to honor their reality and then offering to journey along with them by inviting them, tell me more. It promotes the possibility of belonging by indicating we want you to be here. It can be as simple and momentous as the first time I walked into a UU congregation 19 years ago. The person who greeted me right inside the door, after warmly welcoming me, inquired whether I wanted to be announced as a visitor during the service. That sounds like such a simple thing. They had no way of knowing that I was coping with clinical depression, that it took every drop of courage I had to walk in the door that morning, that I deeply needed to sit quietly in the back row in order to feel safe. They didn't assume that I was like anyone else. They asked, how would you like to engage with our community? And they listened. Their willingness to connect with me as I needed, where I was, as I was, brought me back the next week. Gritty hospitality opens the doors as far as they will go, opening all that we are, shining far beyond the lintel and sill. It means venturing out in new ways while acknowledging our real and valid fears, carrying our mission outside our walls with courageous tenacity. Perhaps sponsoring an anti-racism book club in a public library where there might be new opportunities for connecting rather than doing it at our building. Or offering our whole lives for older adults in a retirement community because healthy sexuality enriches people. Or playing a support role for the social justice work of a nearby Black church with whom we have a relationship despite the difference in our theologies, or hanging a Black Lives Matter banner that probably will be vandalized, and regarding each attack as an opportunity to share our message of universal love. It is experimenting with ideas creative enough to spark change while fully acknowledging the peril, trying uncomfortable new methods, and abandoning perfectionism, recognizing that there is no failure. There is only learning. Some of that might sound a little bit like evangelism. And some people might have even shuddered just a bit as I said that word out loud. That's how I used to feel in the decades I was in evangelical churches. And with good reason, because I sucked at witnessing until I found Unitarian Universalism. That change puzzled me until I dug into what evangelize fully means. When we look at modern definitions, we do find conversion front and center. That word alarms us, and it should, when it represents an intention of othering, of casting out, in order to delineate who will be allowed in. Originally, primarily, the word was about the act of sharing, about sharing good news because it was good, about sharing joy. And we do it already, every week. When we share our joys here, we are evangelizing. I'm just talking about a bigger venue. When I witness about Unitarian Universalism, I'm not trying to draw any lines or fling anyone out. I am letting my joy pour out into the world. And I refuse to let other people's perversion of the concept prevent me from practicing it. If I am reluctant to let that joy pour out, I often find I am worried that the other person in the conversation might not fit in at my congregation, might not like it, might not like me. That's when I remind myself that Unitarian Universalism at our best is not about fitting in, but about belonging. As unique fibers in the interdependent web of existence, through creative interaction based in love, pouring out my joy is about loving people, not about their approval. If universal love is our intention, we can broaden our definition of neighbor as we deal with inclusion. I learned more about that when I planned my grandmother's 80th birthday party. We don't do birthday parties for grown-ups in my family, but two of my grandparents had already passed away, and I wanted to honor my grandmother and create good memories for us grandkids. I planned a menu and asked different people to make certain dishes in exact quantities. I wanted to give my mom a break, and I told her clearly that she didn't need to bring anything. She prepared and arrived with 3 dishes. What was I going to do? I put them on the table. We had our party, and it was great. At the end, the amount of food left over was a little more than the amount my mom brought. I was right about the amount of food we needed based on who I invited. But what mattered that day was her idea of hospitality, which mandates being ready for everyone who could show up. Gritty hospitality is inclusive. Are we ready for the people who are not yet here? If we're not, we know we have the ability to renovate ourselves. We've done it before. How many of our congregations have become welcoming congregations, or become green sanctuaries, or sanctuary congregations? Those hospitality transformations began with an intention to open the door wider, and they always included knocking some rust off the hinges. Are our doors and our floors and our hearts and our hopes and our minds open and ready for those who could show up, though we may not have even invited them. Gritty hospitality is hard work. Where do we find the energy? Collective effervescence is a term coined by Emil Durkheim to depict the feeling of connection, communal emotion, and awareness of being something bigger than ourselves that he found in religious ritual. People may also find it in concerts, athletic events, and political protest. New research in positive psychology found that it can occur in smaller gatherings and less dramatic activities than once believed. We can create effervescence when we gather together in covenantal community. This might help explain why many congregations exceeded their expectations when they moved to online worship last year. Some of us did not expect so many people to work so hard, to learn so much in order to show up. Worship, small group ministry, religious education at every age generate collective effervescence. The more we cherish one another in settings that nurture vulnerability and courageous caring, the more we recharge for the work of rehumanizing the world. Do we need to do this? Commit to reconnecting for rehumanizing? A few years back, I was part of a Risho Kosekai Sangha affiliated with the UU congregation where I was a member. After months of engaging in that lay Buddhist movement, I noticed more people smiling at me in places like the grocery store, complete strangers. I eventually concluded that it had to be due to a change in me. Either the attention I had been giving to feeling compassion for others was somehow showing up in my demeanor, or how I was beholding people had changed. We may first commit to connecting because we recognize the pain and suffering of loneliness around us that comes with dehumanization. The first people we will change will be ourselves. When we open our door, when we embrace vulnerability, when we dive into change and swim in the turbulent current, we change. We change our hearts. We rewire our neural pathways and change our minds. We open the doors wider, more love light flows through in every direction, and we change our spiritual vision. When we commit to connecting, we weave tighter the strands of interdependence. We embody the truth that we need others. When we commit to connecting, when we keep at it, when we try to just keep on loving, we also change, rehumanize, and save ourselves. May it be so, and amen. Our next song is When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Even as this physical flame is extinguished, may the universal love it represents fill our hearts and hands and voices, helping us live as beacons welcoming more seekers, shining far beyond our lintel and sill, opening all that we are, heightening and deepening our connections to the world around us. Our closing words and postlude are combined today. This creation of Nemo Patel and Ellie Walton speaks of committing to connecting with an effervescence I can't resist. As we watch and listen to Keep Loving, please feel free to dance.
Whether you're different, same ignorant or intelligent, whether you tell the truth, lie or embellish it, whether you live in gratitude or for the hell of it, it doesn't really matter, it's still one single fellowship. Whether you've been lustful or living celibate, whether you're an optimist or only see the negative, whether you're dead broke or rich from inheritance, doesn't really matter, we're made of the same sediment. Whether you got a family or single parenting, or you're Asian, African, European or American, whether you pray to God or atheist is irrelevant, cause what you got inside is the same as all your preference. It'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change your life. You touch everyone you see, you'll soon become your family. Do you see yourself in the troubled, in the homeless? Can you say everywhere you are is where your home is? Sharing your heart in the dark just like a lotus, letting your light shine bright so you can float it. Everlasting love of grace like those did Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Buddha, and Moses, who carried the weight of the world upon their shoulders. So every time you fall down, go ahead and hold this close to your heart, cause you're a love soldier, and every time you get a chance, you pay it forward. Moving closer to heaven's gates, we're all soaring. Because of you, love is where we're headed towards. Keep on keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair. So keep loving, it'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change. So keep loving, everything you touch, everyone you see, will soon become your family. So keep loving, gotta keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair, gotta spread the love where nobody cares. Gotta keep on loving, gotta keep on sharing, gotta keep on trying, gotta keep on caring, gotta keep the light on through dark and despair. So keep loving, it'll change your heart, it'll change your mind, and then you'll start to change. So keep loving, everything you touch, everyone you see will soon become your friend. So keep loving.
Thank you, Reverend Pelham.